Imagine what we'd be saying about Jalen Hurts if we didn't have all this baggage about him from last year and about him switching colleges and about all that stuff. Because the way that he's playing is incredible. The accuracy on those deep balls, his ability to beat man coverage, outstanding. His ability to eat up this cover four the same way he did last time he was on Monday night, outstanding. They try to switch it up and zero blitz him. He finds the answer there. He's doing everything right. They have a chance to go down and score. He hits the guy. He hits Goddard. They get a fumble, and he gets it back. Then he hits Watkins, and they fumbles, and he never gets a chance to go back out there. I don't think Jalen Hurts would have been stopped had he been given another opportunity. And then the leadership in the post-game press conference.
I agree with all that, and add to it, when you look at him, he has an NFL running back body from the waist down. He is hard to tackle. He's incredibly strong. So when you talk about a quarterback in 2022, he checks every box.
You know what I want to ask you about, because you're a person who made your living evaluating these guys coming into the draft. And I think the one question, or anytime I ever question how good Jalen Hurts is, I admit it, it is exclusively because coming out of college, I didn't think he was going to be this good. I didn't think he had it in him to become this good. Not only wasn't he this good, I didn't think he had it in the ability to become this good. Have you ever seen how would you describe the transformation that we have seen from what Jalen Hurts was as a prospect to what he is here as a finished product, which is a candidate for MVP of the whole league?
It's historic, but there's a great axiom that applies here. The tape sets the floor and character sets the ceiling. This guy has impeccable character. You guys mentioned it. His dad was a coach. He had to work on his accuracy. He lost a job to Tua at Alabama, went to Oklahoma. That was the only question mark on his resume. He's worked his tail off. He's getting great coaching, and the rest is history.
That's the thing. Something happens to him. He loses his job to Tua, right? He throws an interception. It's not about why did this happen to me. It's about what can I do? What can I do to make sure it doesn't happen again? He's about growth and improvement. He wasn't this good when he came out of college, but he has the stuff inside of him to be great. And I think that's what's really come to the forefront with this player over the last. I don't think he is a finished product. I think he'll continue to work to get better because I think that's who he is.
Fair enough. But what he is more than good enough. He's not developing. He has developed. Now it's just a question of how great he can become.
I tend not to believe in the idea of bust, particularly in the first round. Those guys have a lot of talent. Normally why a player fails, particularly at the quarterback position, is because the GM hasn't built enough around him, and that's the problem. In this situation, he has the talent, and they've built around him. You notice that all the great quarterbacks in the league started out in good situations and give them time to learn and develop. Jalen Hurts is in that same situation.
You know what's really scary? If the season ended right now, they'd have the 4th pick in the draft because it's the Saints pick from the trade they made last year. So they can continue to build around him.
Good general management.
Awfully bright. Go ahead, Marcus. Give me something on Jalen Hurts. And no one knows the SEC better than you do, so obviously. I mean, there was a moment in time where it genuinely looked like your old coach, Nick Saban, was afraid to let Jalen throw the ball in a big spot. Now, all of a sudden, he's tearing up the National Football League. How did that happen?
I love the point that Mike T made about character, because the one thing you could never say about Jalen Hurts is his response to adversity. And a lot of people forget about the year he went to Oklahoma and set college on fire, learning under Lincoln Riley as well. Lost his job to Tua in the national championship and came back and celebrated and was happy. And the following year, I think he needed to replace Tua and was able to respond in that way. Here's the thing about Jalen, though. This is the one knock on him that was coming out of school. He was almost too careful with the football. He wouldn't take those chances downfield. And now you see that maturation because of the work that he's put in. He throws with anticipation now. He puts the ball in the spots where it needs to be put. Y'all, that throw to Forrest made a great play, okay? That was a great interception. But that throw to A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts 4 years ago don't make that throw because he worried about an interception. He makes that throw now because of the confidence of the work that he's put in. And then there is nobody, okay? There is no one, and I mean no one, in this league as far as young quarterbacks that you want leading the other 10 on the football field. From his mentality, his psyche, and the best trait about him, when we talked about him at Alabama, when we talked to coaches about him at Alabama, and you see it now in Philly, and I think it's a trait that you have to be a successful quarterback in the NFL. Jalen Hurts does not blink. It don't matter what situation it is. It don't matter what part of the game it is, what type of adversity. He will not blink. He will keep command. He will ingratiate himself with the guys that's around him, and he will allow them to be a part of everything successful about this football team. That's why you're seeing a tremendous amount of success outside of the necessary football work that he put in just to become a better quarterback. Like Donovan McNabb said on the piece on Monday night countdown last night, Jalen Hurts is a grown man. That's really what he is. That sums it up.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.